everybody, and welcome again to Nerd to the Third Power, your one-stop shop for all things nerdy and awesome. I am your host and master of ceremonies, Dr. Gonzo, and I am back from my convalescence. So, yeah. And with me as always, Epic Quest of Awesomeness is ours, and the gods, the cat. Cat, how are you doing?
I am very tired. Just tired. This is going to be a very low-energy episode for me today, because I just don't sleep anymore. And I didn't really get a good cup of coffee today, so just get ready to ride this wave.
Well, you got nothing on me on that score, but we'll get to that in a moment. And Mike, how are you doing?
I'm good, incredibly busy the last couple of days. I did an assignment for one of my college classes I'm taking that was worth 15%, which I left it till the last minute like a schmuck. But feel pretty confident in how it turned out. And then I've been doing a lot of my politicking the last little bit. I'm doing a bunch of stuff with Indigenous and disability issues right now and hoping to get some really cool results out of it. So keeping my hands in about 20 different pies right now. I might die, but I just got to make it to December and then I can go away for a month.
Okay. So to answer a question that I've gotten an email a few times, which is basically where were we for all of September? So just kind of bring you guys up to speed as what's been going on. Is just kind of fold back the curtain a little bit as to what's been happening and where we've been and why we've been running kind of silent for so long. And this is kind of take things in the serious town for a little bit. A lot of that's on me. So just to bring you guys up to speed, back in August, I was basically diagnosed with testicular cancer. And in September, I had to have a surgery to remove the offending nut, which basically put me out for a whole month. I'm fine now. My prognosis is excellent. We're doing surveillance going forward, so hopefully this battle has been won. So it's not like I'm about to punch my ticket or anything. If there's two things I've learned from this experience, it's one, gentlemen, always check your cells every month. Do as Deadpool says, before you go shopping in the one-man produce section, tweak those tomatoes before you go plucking a cucumber. And number two, I am never leaving you two to run the show alone ever again. I don't know what the hell happened. The edit was totally sloppy. You left the lights and the equipment on. There was popcorn in the soundboard. Mike, why was there popcorn in the soundboard?
Monkeys.
It was absolutely monkeys. I was there. I saw the whole thing.
Yes.
Yeah. You will be billed for this for the damage to the soundboard, Mike. But
I'm not cleaning it.
I am back, and we are back, and we are going to finish out our year nice and strong. And so with that, we're just jump right into it, starting as always with Ask a Geek, and we got several questions here. It's going to be kind of piling up in our absence here. Let's see here now. First question here is for all. Well, it's for all of us, and the question is, what do we think of the announcement that Russell T Davies is going to be returning as showrunner for Doctor Who? So Kat, I guess we'll just start with you on this one. Have you heard about this, and what are your thoughts on it?
I did hear about it. I haven't watched Doctor Who in a few years. So I am significantly behind. I loved Russell T Davies' run on Doctor Who, so I would be very interested to see what he produces. But I also don't remember if he was like one of those controversial guys or not. Like, I loved his run, but like, am I hallucinating and remembering that maybe he wasn't that good of a person or something? I feel like
you remember something happening.
I feel like something happened that I'm blanking out on that that maybe he should not come back.
Well, you might be thinking of Christopher Eccleston's time in the first year as the Ninth Doctor. He has since said, since he left the show, that the reason why he left was he had some clashes with some of the higher ups about how some of the crew were treated during that first year. I don't know if don't recall if he ever laid any particular sins at Davies' feet. But he didn't feel like he and the crew were very well treated in that first year. But that's the only thing that I can think of. I don't recall anything really major coming out about Russell T Davies' run. Of course, then again, by the time I got into show, he'd already left, and we were halfway through Matt Smith's run as the 11th Doctor. So, maybe something, maybe it's just maybe something happened and I just never heard about it. So I don't know. Mike, what about you? You have any thoughts on this?
What years did he specifically run?
2000. He ran the first 4 years, so I would say probably 2005 to 4.5 if you count the 4 David Tennant specials before Matt Smith came in. So let's say 4.5. So I'd say probably 2005 to 2009, 2010 at the latest.
I don't think it's a terrible choice, and I'm sure someone will come at me in the comments. You know what? Fight me. I'm fine with it. I mean, I just don't want them to go back to the well of here's the Daleks, here's the Cybermen, here's all the greatest hits you've heard 10 times before, but hey, you're going to pay for it again.
They're definitely doing that. I saw an article today. It was like, here's who's coming back. I'm like, oh, God.
Yeah, for fuck's sakes.
For fuck's sake.
I mean, it's Doctor Who. You're going to have the Daleks, you're going to have the Cybermen. In the case of the Daleks, you have to have them because there's something in the Terry Nation estate or something that says they have to be used at least once a year or some weirdness like that. But I mean, that's not a problem that began with Russell T Davies. That's something that's always been baked into Doctor Who is, going back to the well of the classic monsters.
I mean, I'm just hoping he pulls from a really good area of directors and writers, and when the new Doctor comes in next year, hopefully we'll see another change to the status quo, because I haven't seen much of the female Doctors run, but I like what I've seen, but I kind of felt like maybe you could have done a little bit more with it. So I don't know, maybe we'll finally get a girl Doctor who's a ginger, because we've been talking about turning him ginger for like what feels like 20 years now. So just do it already. So yeah, I'd be cool with whatever's going to happen. Surprise me, get me involved in the show somehow, some way.
Well, I said before, I kind of fell out of Doctor Who after Peter Capaldi's first year, and I never really picked it up again. I was really kind of surprised to hear the announcement, because and again, this is I didn't really follow David's career very closely after he left Doctor Who, so I don't know, maybe this is just me pulling something out of my butt, but like I was kind of under the understanding that he wasn't someone who really kind of like looking back or going back to a well that he's already drank from. So to hear that he was coming back as the showrunner was kind of a surprise. So I mean, not having watched Doctor Who for several years, I don't really have much of an opinion as to what it's done over the last few years. And like I said, I've got a lot of catching up before I would be able to watch the new stuff anyway. So I don't know. I kind of really don't have an opinion right now beyond just kind of, that's a bit of a surprise. All right, and let's see here now. Next question here. This one comes from Mike, and it's from Mike to Mike.
Oh, yay!
Mike's
writing his own questions here.
How handsome are you? Well, let me answer that, Mike.
Okay, and the question is, if you could reboot any one movie universe, what would it be? And secondary question, if you could erase one reboot, what would it be?
Erase would definitely get rid of the 2014 RoboCop. Some cool ideas, but ultimately feels kind of flat. If I could reboot one movie universe, that's interesting. I would like to maybe reboot certain aspects of the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, most notably anything after number 4, if I could tweak some of that continuity. And I would keep New Nightmare as is, but I would redo 5 and 6, and the reboot that happened in 2010, which doesn't really count anyway, I would erase that from existence as well. If I had to do an honorable mention, maybe the Halloween franchise, but we're gonna talk about that in a few weeks anyway. So yeah, that'd probably be what I'd end up doing.
Okay. All right, and okay, next question here is for me, and it's from Rick, and he asks, "What are some of my favorite horror games to play around Halloween?" Well, as a retro collector, I'm always an advocate of the classics. So some of my favorites are Silent Hill 1 and 2, the Resident Evil remake, which was originally on the GameCube, but now is on just about any console you'd care to name. Excuse me. Fatal Frame 2, Crimson Butterfly. That's one that always gets me jumping out of my seat, no matter how many times I've played it. And then this is one that kind of surprises people, but I have always been willing to go to bat for Doom 3. It's very much the black sheep of the franchise because it took a much more slower horror-based tone than the runny-gunny, shooty, blow everything up action of the rest of the series. But I feel like that Doom 3 did what it did very well. So if you play that just kind of on its own and kind of take away the baggage associated with the rest of the franchise, I think Doom 3 makes for a very neat little horror game. And then a couple that I don't see a lot of people talk about very often, which kind of is a bit of a shame because they're really great games worth playing. One of them is an older title, and that's Clive Barker's Undying, which is a very fun little horror first-person shooter. And another one that I will always go to bat for, and it's one of my favorite games of all time, System Shock 2, which is still just one of the most terrifying games I've ever played. And I have a very unhealthy relationship with its main villain, Shodan, but that's a discussion for another day. So yeah, so those are some of my favorite horror games to play around Halloween. So yeah. Check some of those out if you'd like. I know that a lot of the older ones are available on GOG.com. Some of the others, like Fatal Frame 2, you might have a little bit of a trouble getting a hold of because they were older console games. I think Fatal Frame 2 was on the original Xbox and the PlayStation 2. But most of the others you shouldn't have any real trouble getting a hold of if you know where to look. And let's see here now. Okay, next question here. This one comes from Tom, and it's for all of us. And his question is, what are some of our favorite Halloween specials? And Tom, you are in luck because that is actually the discussion topic for this episode. So just stick around for just a couple moments. We'll just get right on that. But as for the rest of you, thank you for sending your questions in. As always, you can send them to us through the email at drgonzo@nerdtothethirdpower.com. We love getting your questions, love reading them on the air, so go ahead and get your questions in, and you just might get yours read on the show. And as I said in that boss segue a couple moments back, our discussion topic this week is our favorites Halloween shows and specials. So, it seems like every year around Halloween, all the major television shows, they have like some kind of special Halloween episode. Simpsons Treehouse of Horror is one of the ones that's been the longest running, but other shows have done their own Halloween episodes. And then there's also some horror anthology shows that really kind of brought their A game around Halloween. So we thought it would be fun to kind of talk about some of our favorite Halloween specials. So so let's just jump right in. So Mike, let's start with you. What's one of your favorite Halloween shows that you like to watch around this time of year?
Well, one show that I'm a big fan of, and the show doesn't get nearly enough love as I think it deserves. It was released back in 2007, ran for about 2 years, I think, 24 episodes, and it's called Masters of Horror, and it's an anthology series where each episode is a mini movie that's about 45 minutes to an hour. They'll pick famous horror directors like Joe Dante, Mick Garris, Tobe Hooper, Dario Argento, Wes Craven before he passed away, and stuff like that. And it's a fantastic show, and nobody talks about it. And the reason I really like it is because it explores really weird ideas, some disturbing ideas. Like the one episode that really caught my attention, back in the day when I was getting more physical product to review for This Week in Geek, I got a company called Anchor Bay, and they sent me this Master of Horror disc, because back then you couldn't get the episodes until the end of the season, and then they give you a really cool case for it. The episode I saw, I think it was called Hackle's Tale or something like that. And it basically, the story is a guy who's recently lost his wife. She's passed away or something. And he approaches this old woman who is a necromancer. And she says to him, or the guy says, I want to bring my wife back from the dead. I miss her. I'm so lonely. I don't know what to do. Will you help me? And she's like, I won't help you just yet. So sit down for a moment and let me tell you. And if you still want me to do it after I tell you everything, then I will. So she tells a story about a guy who, really, it boils down to he couldn't satisfy his wife. It didn't matter what he bought her, didn't matter what anything he did, just something was wrong. And long story short, there's a really shocking turn as to why he can't satisfy her. And I was like, holy shit, you can do this on cable? And it blew me away because I didn't expect to see that level of, frankly, depravity and the subject matter that it took on. And then the story cuts back to the present and the guy freaks out. He's like, oh my God, I'm sorry I asked. I'm sorry. And he runs out. And I was like, holy shit. And then there's another episode. I can't remember who the director was, but it was more in the line of goofy and fucked up. And the episode's called We All Scream for Ice Cream. And it's about a killer who died in like the 50s or 60s and comes back as what looks like Sweet Tooth from Twisted Metal. And he has the ability to turn you into ice cream and kill you. It's fucking stupid, but it's amazingly stupid. And the final episode, basically, what if your country's founding fathers, like George Washington, etc., when they founded this country, what if they were cannibals? And hilarity ensues. It's so strange. It's so weird. The series, I really wish more people would talk. I think you can buy it on Apple right now. I'm pretty sure. Otherwise, it is really worth picking up in whatever format you can. I don't know if it's available to stream anywhere legally, and I don't advocate piracy, but the entire series is worth tracking down, especially the second season where things get a little weirder. And that DVD case is shaped like a human skull, and it's remarkably cool and surprisingly solid for a DVD collection. And then there was one episode that was never aired on TV that came out of Japan. There's a very famous Japanese horror movie, and it involves somebody putting stuff under a guy's fingernails. This goes a little bit beyond that. So it's really worth kind of checking out if you're a horror hound.
Okay, yeah, I remember hearing about Mash's Horrors. For some reason, I kept on confusing with American Horror Story. Don't know why.
Yeah, and American Horror Story is another series that's worth kind of checking out. I've only recently gotten into it. I really started with American Horror Story 1984 because it was basically, here's Friday the 13th, the series starring Skinner from the X-Files, Mitch Pileggi. So it's amazing and strange and such a homage that it's worth checking out on its own. And I know the other American Horror Stories are all connected, but 1984 was completely separate, so that's where I jumped in, and it's been pretty cool so far.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll go next. So one of I kind of took a bit more of a lighthearted direction with my choices, and one of the shows that I always like to watch around Halloween. You know, we've all heard the jokes, and I tend to agree with them that The Simpsons is just way past its prime. That it hasn't been. It's never been nearly as funny as it was in the 90s. It's kind of gotten to be a bit of a dinosaur. But that said, the Treehouse of Horror specials have always been appointment TV viewing for me. I just absolutely love them. But my favorite ones, like I said, are always the ones from like the first like 8 or 9 years of the show. Just some of it, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that a lot of the early stories in the early Treehouse of Horror specials were send-ups of classic Twilight Zone episodes. I think like the first 6 years, at least one of the shorts that they did was a send-up of a Twilight Zone episode. So like just like Hungry Are the Damned from the first year, that was a send up of To Serve Man. Homer Cubed, the one where he goes to where Homer gets trapped in the computer animated world, that was a send up of Little Girl Lost. The one where Bart has the telekinetic powers, that's a send up of It's a Good Life. And I love the way the Simpsons would take these really kind of fucked up stories from the Twilight Zone and turn them into something really humorous. And they contain some of my favorite Simpsons lines ever. Like one of the jokes from the Monkey's Paw story is Lisa wishes for world peace. And she gets her wish as a finger curls on the paw, and everyone around the world destroys all their weapons and joins hands. Start singing Kumbaya. But because we've destroyed all our weapons, now we're ripe for alien invasion. So here come Kang and Kodos, who conquer the entire planet with nothing more than a slingshot and a club. And there's a scene near the end of the story where Homer throws away the monkey's paw, and Ned Flanders picks it up, as you see in the background Kang chasing Moe with a slingshot, and Ned says, well, I think the first thing I'd like to wish for is to get rid of these awful aliens. Then you see in the background, now Moe's chasing Kang, and Kang's like, oh, run, he's got a board with a nail in it. And it's like, oh, they defeat us. Oh, yes, we can't stand up to their board and nail technology, but, they'll build bigger boards with bigger nails until one day they build a board with a nail so big that they destroy themselves. And I absolutely love the Treehouse of Horror specials. Like even today, like you can tell that like the writing staff just really gets to go nuts and have a lot of fun with the Halloween shows. So like I said, some of my favorite segments, The Monkey's Paw, Hungry Are the Damned, Homer Cubed is probably my favorite. One of my favorites, but I think my absolute favorite one is the one where Lisa and Bart, in an attempt to bring back their dead cat, wind up raising the dead. So they wind up raising all these zombies, and one of my favorite lines. He's just rattling off the maybe now because like all but two of them have like gone out of business. So like, you start going like, Kmart, Caldor, Walmart. It's like, people look, it's like, well, okay, well, why is Walmart in that list? What are these other names? So the Treehouse of Horror specials are, I think, still like The Simpsons at their best. So
I think that's the only time they let the writing staff off the chain, and I can only imagine what it's like to be in that particular kind of writer's room. People begging and pitching ideas every year to work on something that doesn't, frankly, suck 9 times out of 10.
I mean, even but like even like the like some of the later ones, the one thing I don't like about the Treehouse of Horror specials over the last few years is, they've all gotten really kind of, it's really easy to date them. So like, the one from a couple years ago had one that was just a long parody of Game of Thrones. And those ones I don't really like as much because, like I said, it's very easy to date those episodes. Like, the Twilight Zone episodes,
They're more timeless.
Yeah, they're pulling from older pop culture, but the stories are simple enough and versatile enough that you can write jokes that don't hinge on you living in, being familiar with the source material or having to have lived in that particular moment in time. Whereas, the Game of Thrones parodies, it very much relied on you being familiar with the actual Game of Thrones TV show.
Yeah, it just seems like the last couple of years have been, here's a pop culture reference, and you're absolutely right. They're more dated, whereas the earlier things had a timeless quality to them that can easily be updatable if they wanted to, but the writing was so strong, it didn't need to be.
I mean, Dad, you killed the zombie Flanders. He was a zombie? That will always be funny. Yeah. But, a joke on
Saw
you know,
or something.
Yeah, that's a little less so. So, but yeah, so that's one of my favorite Halloween shows to watch. Is like I said, the Simpsons Treehouse of Horror specials. Those are always appointment television watching for me. And Kat, I'm interested to hear what you've got to bring to the table this week.
I'm honestly surprised you need to ask, because I feel like every year when we talk about Halloween, I talk about the same thing. Because, to be honest, I can't remember very many Halloween specials. Not in the same way that, like, I remember, like, Christmas specials and stuff like that. So I always default to my favorite Halloween episode of any TV show that I can actually remember having one, and that is the second season Buffy Halloween episode, where a bunch of the characters buy their costumes from like a magical costume shop, and then they just turn into whatever their costumes are. Because that is a really enchanting idea. Like, if you knew it was going to happen, you could really go and get a really good time out of your Halloween if you could turn into your costume. It's just all over. It's just like a really fun episode. Like, Buffy turns into this like helpless 18th century damsel, and Willow turns into a ghost, and Xander turns into like this badass army dude. And like that part at least has ramifications for later down the series. The other ones not so much, but like yeah, I just think there's this episode has some particularly interesting character interactions, a lot of like
Awesome bad guy.
awesome bad guy. Like, actually one of the best bad guys in Buffy. I think that's the episode he's introduced in.
Yeah, I think
Ethan Rain, or
yeah, Ethan Rain.
Yeah. One of the best bad guys, especially because he's like Giles's nemesis. So it's like, it's just such a fun, like, just a doofy, fun episode. Nothing too crazy, too heavy, nothing like over the top or too hammy. It's just fun because people had to have solutions without Buffy being like, okay, I'm the Slayer, I'll take care of the problem. And then that's it. So it was kind of just a fun episode, but I really like the idea of, like, as soon as you watch it, you're like, okay, if I could turn into one of my Halloween costumes, what would it be? And I think that concept is a lot of fun.
So if you could turn into one of your Halloween costumes, which costume would it be?
God, okay, what have I done for Halloween? I have a tendency to pull out my Harry Potter, like, Hogwarts robes, because it's just really easy to pull those out of the closet. So I think that one would actually be okay, because then I could be a wizard, or a witch, I guess, and I could fucking do magic. And even if that were only for one day, that would be pretty good.
You know, you're right. You do kind of default to the Buffy episode. There is a Halloween episode though that I'm surprised that you've never brought up, especially considering that it's from a show that I know that you are like a super huge fan of, and that's the Halloween episode of Gargoyles. I'm surprised you've never brought that one up.
Love Gargoyles, but I can't remember a lot of the show. What happens in Gargoyles? Because I don't remember.
Oh, well, it's Halloween night, and the gargoyles can actually like go down onto the streets and walk among humans without like people running and screaming and acting like monsters and going, monsters. And Eliza dresses up as Belle, and she and Goliath do like a Beauty and the Beast dance.
Oh, that's sweet. I literally don't remember seeing this, but I bet I did watch it a long time ago.
Yeah,
that's a funny contrast to the Buffy episode, or there's 3 Halloween episodes of Buffy, and it is specified in these episodes that the monsters don't come out because they consider it too garish. So like all the vampires and shit just take one night off.
But yeah, like they go down to the street and they actually like enjoy the festivities, and Lexington is dressed like a pilot. He's got like, you know, the pilot goggles, and you know, over his wings and the rest of his loincloth and shit. And he's like, oh, they should have Halloween every day.
Yes. Oh, I do love Gargoyles.
Yeah, so
I need to find that now. Damn it.
It's on Disney Plus.
Oh my god, that's right. Gargoyles is on Disney Plus. I know what I'm doing the next time I have free time, whenever that may be.
So yeah, okay, all right. Mike, what's your other pick? Because we had to limit you to just 2, because
Yeah.
we were discussing what we were doing this episode. It's like, oh, I'm going to talk about this, that, and the other thing, and I'm just like, you have to pick two because other people need to have a turn to talk too.
Okay, so this is a fairly new series, yet another anthology, but shorter, which is kind of cool. So this is a series that is exclusive to Shudder, which is about $5 to $7 a month. Incredible horror streaming service. In fact, it's worth it. There's some really cool stuff on there. But the show I'm talking about is a adaptation of the 1980s classic Stephen King movie, Creepshow. So the titular creep, this zombie-looking crypt keeper asshole, will tell you a story via a comic book. And typically you get 2 things per episode, lasting each about 20 minutes apiece. And the show really hit its stride in season 2. Season 3 is airing right now. And the episode that caught me was, I think it was called House of the Dead. I don't think I got the episode title correct, but basically this person has a dollhouse.
It's a video game, not a TV show.
So this person has a dollhouse, and there are dolls in it. And every so often, one of these dolls gets murdered, like torn apart. So the kid gets the idea, well, the family got hurt. I'll put a cop doll in there. And then the cop doll changes position in the house, and it looks like it's going upstairs, and there's been another murder. And this little creepy severed head thing keeps moving around the house, and the kid gets more and more frightened as she starts to hear things and terrible things happen in the real world. And it's fucked up and amazing. But what really sold me on it was they had an episode called Public Broadcast of the Dead or something like that. I don't know. I can't remember the name, but basically, what if Bob Ross, the painter, the most wholesome man since Mr. Rogers, was Ash from Evil Dead, involving the literal Necronomicon, which is being sold on Vintage Roadshow or Antiques Roadshow, and that gets appraised, and while the appraiser's reading the book, summons deadites, literal, canonical deadites. And it's them trying to prevent the signal of them reading the Necronomicon over the air to raise other Evil Dead spirits. And it's an amazingly fun show. Then there's another episode called The Right Snuff. And The Right Snuff involves 2 astronauts who are going to Mars. One of them is fated to make alien contact. With the first time in galactic history, the universe has been watching us. They're ready to welcome us into galactic civilization. One of them gets jealous, and it doesn't end very well for humanity. Another one has Keith David playing the devil, so Spawn himself, the guy from They Live, is an amazingly cool bad guy. And there's just so many good episodes. They actually had one last year. It was the season finale. It involved, I think it was Justin Long, and they inserted him via the Forrest Gump technology where they blended a person into older footage. They put him in a 1972 Peter Cushing movie with Christopher Lee. So Dracula and Van Helsing in the same movie, and he's interacting with all these scenes, and it's really quite incredible to watch considering the budgetary constraints they had to do. Then there's like a killer hairball, Nazi werewolves, and a bunch of other really strange shit. The show has special effects by Greg Nicotero, guy trained under Tom Savini, also does a lot of the Walking Dead stuff. I think he executive produces it. I don't know whether there's special effects. Either way, it's fantastic. And it's a great idea to take the horror anthology of Creepshow 1 through 2. I don't consider 3 and 4 canonical because they're bullshit. But yeah, they are incredible. The fact that it's on Shudder is a little bit of a problem, which means its audience is somewhat limited. But it always gets really good ratings. Season 3, I haven't had a chance to watch it. I'm going to binge it the week before Halloween actually starts. And I think, folks, if you enjoy short little bite-sized horror, then you're really going to enjoy it. The gore factor's there, the fun factor's there. There's always dark humor, and it's underappreciated, and I wish more people would be talking about Creepshow in 2021.
Okay, alrighty. Cool. All right. Well, that'll be worth checking out. All right. So I'm next with my second choice, and again, I took more of a comedic bent. So one of my favorite shows, and it's actually one of the few shows that I watch on the regular. Because like I said, I watch very little television as a rule, but this is a show. This is one of the few shows that's actually appointment television watching for me, and that's Bob's Burgers. And my favorite episodes of Bob's Burgers are always the ones focused on the kids. Luis is just my absolute favorite character on the show. So naturally, it makes sense that because Halloween is very much a kids' holiday, that some of my favorite episodes of the show would be some of the Halloween episodes. And there's two in particular. Let me pull up my notes here so I can get their placement right. Okay, so there's three in particular that I really enjoy. The first is season 3, episode 2, which is titled "Full Bars," and it's the story of that episode. Luis, Tina, and Jean decide that they're old enough to go trick or treating on their own, but rather than go trick or treating in their regular, dumpy neighborhood, they decide to go where the rich people live, to King's Head Island. And they discover that all the houses there give away full-size candy bars, and I just love their reaction when they discover this. Like, Louise is like, "Oh my God, she gave us full bars. Did she realize that she was doing this? Was it an accident?" And Jean's like, "How does this not topple your economy?" And it's just, and it's I just love that episode because the concept of getting full bars for trick or treating, it's one of those things that, like, every kid growing up, we always heard about about that house that gave away full bars, but nobody could ever tell you which one it was. But we all swore we knew that one kid who he got full bars at this one house. And it was always like kind of the guessing game trying to find what that one house is. And I love that episode so much. I also love that the kids always come up with some really creative costumes. So like that episode, Luis was Edward Scissorhands. She's walking around with a pair of scissors in each hand, throughout the evening. Jean was dressed up as in his words, Queen Latifah from her UNITY phase. And Tina was a mummy mommy. She'd wrapped herself and a baby doll up in toilet paper. So she was a mummy who was, in her words, she was a mummy who was a mommy, single mummy who worked 2 jobs and was just trying to put herself out there. And then the next Halloween episode that I particularly enjoy is season 4, episode 2, Fortnite. Where in an effort to escape from this classmate of hers, basically stalking her, Luis and Jean and Tina and a couple of their friends hide in this fort that they've built behind the restaurant, and they wind up getting trapped there by a delivery truck parking in front of their fort for the evening. And one of the things that I love about that episode is one of the characters, he talks about, he follows this blog called Candy Randy, who created this map called the Treasure Trail that shows, like, all the must visit houses and all the must avoid houses. And I really love that bit because, everyone's got their kind of Halloween rituals and traditions. Like, okay, you always go down this route because you get the best candy there. You stay away from these houses because you might get, bad candy or pencils or erasers or pennies, which I just want to say it's fucking 2021. It's fucking 2020. Wow, it is really hard to say the current year without getting your tongue tied. I don't say it's fucking 2021. If I find out that, like, you're giving out pennies in this day and age, like, you deserve to have your house just egged to oblivion. There's just, like, you can't buy penny candy anymore. It costs a nickel. A penny's not going to get you anywhere. But, like, we all have, growing up, we always had, like, those rituals, like, what houses do you go to? What houses do you avoid? And it's just a night of kids being kids. And I love those kinds of stories.
One of the things, sorry, Gonzo, you brought up something exceptionally relevant, I thought, because when you mentioned the Candy Randy, do you wonder if something like that actually exists kind of locally for, like, Facebook pages for kids or something like that?
Oh my God.
Like, think about that. I mean,
is there some like child developed an app nowadays so that kids can like figure out, like map out the best houses to go to. This is something, guys.
I don't know. I don't know, but I can tell you from when I was coming up, there was this one kid. His name was Charlie Dunham, and like he was like the guy to follow for trick-or-treating every year because he knew all the best houses, and like I don't know if it was just like he knew like he had like some kind of optimized route or something, but like every year if you followed him around, you got like 2.5 times as much candy as anyone else in the neighborhood. It was like fucking weird. Like I don't know how he did it. Like the day he moved away, it just like it just rattled the candy economy in my neighborhood coming up. So and then the third Halloween episode that we're like kind of getting away from the trick-or-treating theme is season 6, episode 3, The Haunting. And this one's a kind of a haunted house story. So the plot of this one is like the family wants to go to a haunted house for Halloween, and Luis is kind of like, not really into it because she never gets scared. And it shows you this montage of like, her going through different haunted houses. Like, sir, your chainsaw is made of cardboard and you're just making noises with your mouth. It's kind of embarrassing. So Bob and Linda decide that, we're gonna do our own haunted house, and we're definitely gonna scare you. And they take the kids to this house, in kind of the middle of nowhere, and they try and do just the absolute worst haunted house imaginable. But then it turns into like a slasher movie where there's this old man who was staring at them as they pulled in, and the power goes out in the house, and it basically turns into like a giant slasher film send up. And at the end of it, it's revealed that the whole thing has been a setup specifically to scare Louise, and like the whole family and everybody was in on it. And it's just it's a really great episode, really well written, and a really creative twist on the Halloween slasher special that I've seen just so many times. Where they'll do a send up of like Scream or something, and it'll just be like just a straight up reenactment. This one had a kind of a real neat little twist on the formula. And like I said, a lot of them are just stories of just like kids being kids, and I just kind of love those stories around Halloween. And I think with that, if we're going to talk about Halloween specials, there's one that we absolutely have to talk about. It is the required Halloween viewing, and that is It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. I'm not even going to bother going into synopsis on this one because we have all seen this one. I absolutely know that. So, Kat, why don't you tell us your thoughts on this special first?
It's just such a classic. It's like timeless and cute, and like it's just good, you guys. Like it's so harmless and just fun, and it's not scary. It's just funny. And it's very memeable, as we all know from Charlie Brown's "I've Got a Rock." Like, I think it's so cute, and like all the other like Charlie Brown, like the Christmas specials and stuff. It just has that sort of timeless quality to it that makes it required viewing. At least I will say for American kids. I don't know what the rest of the world has going on for themselves in their relationship with the Charlie Brown specials, but they're pretty much required viewing here. They're just fun. All the lines, all the beats. Nothing surprises you, and yet we watch it.
Now, Mike, we were kind of touched on this before the episode. You've got some unique feelings towards this.
You have a bone to pick.
Spicy take, a ghost pepper take. I fucking hate this special. So last year I watched it for the first time. I watched it with Blair, who's my wife, and I think my friend Alex, and we're watching it, and I was like, this is fucking it? I've been waiting almost 40 years to watch it, and this is it? I really thought the Great Pumpkin would actually show up, and I thought, it would be a cute little ghost spirit or, something kind of playful. But nah, the motherfucker never shows. And I was like, you bastard. I felt genuinely ripped off. I remember looking at Blair, who was so happy she showed this to me. I'm like, man, fuck you. I'm a terrible person. Now, I have had 40 years of hype built up for that. And I really thought it was going to be something timeless and amazing and magical. And Kat's right, it is cute, harmless, and definitely a product of its time. But I expected something more from it. Like, for some reason, I thought it was going to be that sort of Rankin Bass, timeless classic, right? Like, it was going to be something that, you know, it was going to be like essential viewing. And for me, maybe I'm too cynical. Maybe I grew up on the wrong shit, which is pretty evident. I was like, wow, I don't like this at all, but I like the other Peanuts stuff except this. So I don't know. Like I said, that's my ghost pepper take. I'm sure someone will eviscerate me, but I didn't like it. I felt really shitty that the Great Pumpkin never showed, but as Kat put it during our earlier conversation, the Great Pumpkin is in our hearts.
It's funny because, like, I think as a kid, I didn't really have any appreciation for the sort of there's a lot of stuff, a lot of themes of futility in Charlie Brown that I didn't get as a kid. And I read like literally every comic as a kid. My dad had all the bound comic books from the 70s, and I read every single one of them like a million times. And as a kid, it was like, oh, funny. I didn't get the sort of, there's just like this little bit of nihilism in them that is always evidenced by every time Lucy puts down that football, Charlie Brown is going to get tricked into kicking it. And it's just this sort of inevitability and futility. And that is kind of present in a lot of Charlie Brown stuff. And the staying up and waiting for the Great Pumpkin that will never come is just another one of those sort of, I don't know, it's just sort of this futile effort that people continue to make. And it's like, I think it's a lesson in not just futility, but in hope. That Linus is always going to look for him because he believes, and that's everybody knows he's not coming because the Great Pumpkin's not real, but there's hope.
Kat,
well,
this moment I've fallen in love with you because you've given me the best deep psychological analysis of it ever.
It's something that I've literally never thought about until you said you didn't like it for that reason, and I was like, well, wait a minute, why do I like it? Oh, this is what the whole thing is about. It's this whole thing, and it's just something that it doesn't really cross your mind as a kid, but as an adult, you're like, oh god, this is sort of thematic of the Charlie Brown, like all the different things. Is like in the Christmas special, you dress up the sad little tree and make it good. Because the sad little tree can fill you with hope.
Well, if on that note, if you do want to see the Great Pumpkin as a the slavery monster that I'm sure that you're imagining it to be, longtime listeners will recall that a while back we had Jason Youngbluth, off the creator of Deep Fried and Weapon Brown, as a guest on this show, and because kind of a refresher course, Weapon Brown is basically a mashup of Peanuts meets Mad Max. And one of the stories in that universe that Youngbluth did, and he reruns it every year around Halloween, basically has Linus as this dark priest who worships the Great Pumpkin, and every Halloween he reruns the story where he tries to sacrifice Sally Brown to the Great Pumpkin, who turns out to be this like eldritch this eldritch Cthulhu type creature. And it actually winds up being a prequel to the whole Weapon Brown mythos. But he reruns that every year, and it's a really fun, if somewhat twisted, very twisted. Seriously, this is like not this is definitely not for the wee ones. Definitely not safe for work type stuff. But it's if you want to see a really kind of twisted take on the whole Great Pumpkin thing, whatisdeepfried.com, Weapon Brown, definitely worth checking out if you want to see some really twisted some really twisted takes on Peanuts and newspaper comics in general. So but that's about all the time that we have for this week. So listeners, what are some of your favorite Halloween shows and specials? Sound off in the comments. We always love hearing from you guys. And with that, we will see you guys next time. Thank you as always for tuning in. As always, I'm Dr. Gonzo.
I'm the Cat.
I'm Mike the Birdman, and be sure to check out Chucky and Day of the Dead on Sci-Fi this week if you want some more horror stuff that you should check out.
All right, we'll see you guys next time. Taka, play us out.